So as I said earlier, my name is Mark Boas. I'm totally fascinated by the idea of opening up media, whether it's audio or video, with things like transcripts. And so that's what I've been doing for the last, I don't really want to count the years, 5 years I suppose, maybe more. Mostly with Lorien, generally work with Lorien. Went off on a small diversion and founded a company called Trint a few years ago. But I'm out of that now and back to doing projects with non-profits and things like that. So one of these projects was the Studs Terkel Radio Archive, which was a project taken up by WFMT. I'm struggling to remember what that stands for now. But it's a radio station in Chicago. And they had this fantastic material, which is why I really wanted to do this project. So I'm just going to talk really briefly about what we did. So like I just said, the motivation was the content. It was fantastic interviews. Studs Terkel was a famous interviewer. You might say is one of the first original podcasters. Used to go around with the little cassette recorders when they first came out, I think in the 60s. I might have my dates wrong there, but and interview a lot of fascinating people, and often used to contribute very much to the interview itself. So he's one of those really good interviewers, and he interviewed people like Simone de Beauvoir, Eartha Kitt, Hunter S. Thompson, Muhammad Ali, a load of people, and they have literally 1,200 hours of interviews. And basically, I don't know how I did this, but I convinced them that we ought to transcribe all these interviews and make them much more shareable and expose them on the web somehow. And so they started a Kickstarter, and it looked like the Kickstarter was about to fail. And I don't know if anybody used to watch Friends, but Ross from Friends was a big fan of Studs Terkel, David Schwimmer. And at the last minute, he ponied up enough money to just get the Kickstarter over the line. And we started work. And this is while I was still working as CTO of Trint. And I persuaded them to do a collaboration with Trint and also Hyper Audio, which was a kind of the platform that we were going to use a little bit to create this new thing. So the website has gone live. We haven't got all the content up there. Some of the tools still need a bit more work. This is kind of what it looks like. And this is Studs. So, as I mentioned, transcripts were an important thing. Interactive transcripts, which means word level timings, usually. Clickable words to navigate, so you can quite easily go through the content. And the ability to select and share. And also remix. So, with that in mind, we had to make the word level time transcripts. And since I was working at Trint, we used Trint to transcribe it. This was kind of user testing in a way, because it was early days at Trint. And we also used Trint to correct them. And we had this possibility that we haven't used yet, but because Trint is an editor, I should sort of explain what it is, a transcript editor that allows you to correct word level transcripts, but not necessarily lose too much of the timings. It has a good stab at guessing where the timings are after you've corrected it, but it's not 100% accurate in that way. You often do lose timings, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. But so there was the option to realign with Gentle, which we explored. Now Gentle is based on Caldi. Probably a lot of you know about it. Open source, does alignment, actually does transcription as well, but not necessarily very well. But it's just kind of a wrapper around Caldi. So how were we going to do this? What was the flow? So part of it was that I wanted to have the content also on Hyper Audio, hyperaud.io, which is a platform for kind of experimenting with transcripts that we've had going now for 4 or 5 years. So it was all mirrored on there. And then we were working with another group called Digital Relab that had a kind of media archive platform that they were developing called starchive. And so stuff had to come from Trin into HyperAudio and then out to starchive. And then the final site was built on Drupal, which was difficult to manage for us because we've never really done anything with Drupal before, but we managed in the end. And it was all represented in JSON, the word timings, the text, and the speakers and so on. So it was all about sharing. So one of the powerful things about transcripts is that once you've got something in transcript form, it's much easier to share snippets. I don't know if many people have used medium.com where you can kind of highlight a bit of text. Well, you can kind of do the same thing, but have the audio and video be taken with it. And there's various people that kind of play about with that. So we wanted to do that. Right now we have that sort of medium-like sharing where you can share a link, and that link takes you straight back with the text, share a link with the text, and that takes you back to that text, and also plays the snippet that it represents. Later on, we want to kind of embed media in various social networks, so Twitter or Facebook or whatever, so that somebody can actually see a little bit of, or listen to a little bit of that clip without necessarily having to go back to the site, but then if they want to find out more, they can. And so this is kind of what it looks like, or what it looked like. We're still doing some work here a few months ago. And this is the most simplest form of sharing for us, where we have the actual text, the link, and the start and end time, basically. And that's all there is. The problem was that if things aren't completely aligned properly, and we have things like overlapping timings in the words in the text, the sharing doesn't necessarily work completely accurately. And because we had a remixer which allowed us to kind of copy and paste different bits of text to make up programs, or summarize programs, if you like, we had to make sure that that worked really well. And so we added an extra part to the start and stop times where we used some of the text as kind of anchor points. I think, Lauren, what is that, 10 engram something? I'll explain it. So what we did was, there is a technical name for it, but we took the first 3 words and the last 3 words of any particular snippet, and the first 4 letters, and that would be enough to kind of each word, and that would be enough to kind of anchor it together with the start and stop times, so that there was no ambiguity about which was the part that you had selected. Yep.
Sorry, each first letter of each of the first
3
words?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you can see if it's clear enough here, but the actual snippet, and I'm standing in front of all the slides, I realise now, but the actual snippet says it's one of the, and you can see up here it says it's one, without the punctuation, of, and so it's taken the first 3 words and concatenated it, but it doesn't use the whole word, it only needs the first 4 letters, and that's enough. And then it gets the last 3 words. So the last 3 words here is he's very quiet. And so you see he's very quiet. And that's not the link being truncated because of the bar, that is the actual complete link. And that gave us enough anchoring to get the whole thing. I would have preferred to realign everything. We didn't really have the resource to do that. Maybe we will in the future, because that just makes things simpler. But yet this solution was quite interesting to me. So it means that if your transcripts aren't perfectly aligned or they have overlapping timings, you can still accurately share parts of it. For tracking, we're keeping it really simple. So you saw the links there in the Twitter box. Now they've become Bitly links. Bitly allows you to have a dashboard and see which links are being clicked on. So that's kind of a simple way to do tracking of, which bits are being shared. Our future plans are to have our own custom URL shortener instead of using Bitly, but it's the same principle. The tech that we used, like I said, was Drupal, so some PHP, which was a bit scary for us. Just the usual JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. But now we want to move this technology, now that we've done this and everything we've done, free and open source. To reboot HyperAudio, the website that is now quite old and creaky, to React-style components and Node.js and some sort of serverless stuff that Lorraine wants to do. So I've got a few examples. It's often better just to demonstrate these things. I don't know how much time I've got. A few minutes. So this is the remixer. Can you see that? And this is based on stuff that we have on the HyperAudio side, but we've taken it kind of further in a way. What you can do is search through quite a lot of, as you can see, that's just S and getting a lot of stuff. Various transcripts. I'm not pressing the right button, am I? So here's one. I think it's still loading. Have we got audio? I don't know if my volume's turned up. Is this just a touch bar? This is very newfangled technology.
Yeah.
So if you can imagine the person talking at this point. This is what happens when you're the first one on, isn't it?
This is how you like.
But, so the speech is happening in time with the text, and what you can do is, I'm really bad at using this mouse pad because I've got an old Mac. You can drag, why is Wikipedia? You can drag stuff from left to right and build up from different sources your own sort of mini documentary, if you like, audio. And add things like fade and trim things exactly if you want things to stop at a certain time. That's just done by sort of dragging. Really not liking this. Is it the bottom left I'm going to use? Is that what I'm doing wrong?
Yeah, something triggering that.
So sorry about not being able to use a computer. Add things like trim and fade. And so that's quite nice, and I envisage this being used by students of media and history. And you know, this is the kind of motivation to get into it because of all this great content. And really, you can sit and listen. So if we just go to the main site, okay, I can just go to home, and you go to the Explore. You can sit and listen to some of this stuff for hours. It really is compelling listening. So I'll just show you one quick example because I think we're running out of time. There we go. And here, this is just the player. So at this point, you can just listen to it, and then if you like a snippet or you like a certain part of it, you can share it. I'm not going to do that because I can't. And on social media, I will try again. I think that's still loading. And so that's really it. Let me just go back to the slides. If you want to contact me or have any questions, not sure if we're doing questions now or later.
Are there any questions?
There must have been a reason for you guys to work with the difficult Drupal stack. Like, what was that because they were already using that and you had to latch on to that? Or
Yeah.
What was the story?
That wasn't our decision. So we just had to work with whatever they wanted to work with. So there were various people working on this project. We were doing the transcription side. There were other people that did the actual site itself and the design of the site. And I think in the end, WFMT wanted to use Drupal because they wanted that level of content management. And that's what they chose. Any other questions? No? Okay. Oh, there's one over there. Sean.
Do you use a combination
We just used the one that Trim was using.
Could you maybe use those to like help your text lines so that you're not sure what's going on? Did you ever consider using model services to kind of confirm that transcription was correct when working such a large body of data?
We had a lot of volunteers doing the correcting, so we were lucky to have that resource. This is often the case with things like non-profits. It's a great cause, right? But I think the issue was the correction, because no transcription engine is going to get it 100% correct. And so that's why we kind of gravitated towards Trim.
Cool. Thanks.
Anything else? Okay, thank you very much.